We now need to put our attention to making sure the application doesn't crash or have any unexpected errors. There currently are a couple that exist that we need to check for, and then notify the user if there are issues that they then need to resolve. If you're continuing from the previous video, you can work with the project you already have open. If not, open the Start project for this video in the downloaded exercise files. Let's start the application in the simulator and see what issues we have. Let's start with not entering anything into the amount text box and jump right into trying to set a tip percentage. As you see, the application shuts down. That means we have an error or a crash. On a physical device, the exact same thing would happen. Now, if this was currently in debugging mode with Visual Studio, it would then send a message back to Visual Studio saying that we had encountered an error. So let's go ahead and restart and show another possible error. We can enter an amount, but accidentally put in 2 decimal points. If we calculate again, we'll also get the same crash like we had before. Now, because the app is very simple, there aren't many issues that could arise. But the errors that do happen are due to the fact that the user can enter values that can't be converted from strings to decimals. We can create a block of code that will detect if there is an error and route the execution of code to do something to notify the user. Typically, in Windows Phone applications, feedback to the user is very simple and basic. In this case, we can change the border of the text box to red, indicating that they have entered in an illegal value. To do this, we need to place our code within a try-catch block. Let's go ahead and go back into Visual Studio. In the try-catch block, we will execute our code. If there is an error, we will route to a catch block that will change the border color to red, and then wait for the user to fix the issue. If the user fixes the issue, then we would restore the default border color to the text box. So let's go down to our calculate tip method and put our code in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a try statement here. This is then going to try and execute the code within the text block. So we're going to open this up, and then we'll go down here to the bottom, and then we will close this. Now, if there is an error here, we need to catch that error and have a special section that's going to execute what we want to happen if there is an error encountered. So we'll add a catch, another pair of braces, and then inside of these braces, we're then going to access amount.border brush. Now, the border brush property is that outside edge of the text box. Just like when we were working with colors before, we can access the border brush. But in this case, since we're not working with XAML, we need to create a new solid color brush object in C#. So we'll create a new solid color brush. You'll see that there's a little squiggly line that appears underneath here. The issue is that solid color brush is not currently part of the project. To fix this, we can press Ctrl period. When you do that, you'll see that there's a new dropdown that shows where we can add in the using statement that will allow solid color brush to be added into the project. So if I go ahead and click that, you'll see that solid color brush now changes color and the red squiggly line goes away. Just to prove this, I'm going to go back up to the top, and you'll see that using System Windows Media is now added to our project. So let's go ahead back down to the bottom, and now we're going to set solid color brush to colors.red. If we run this now and we encounter the error, it will execute this code. But if the user fixes the error, it will still maintain a red color around it. So now we need to change inside of our try block to set this back to the system border brush that's default for the application. So now we're going to put in amount.border brush, and we're going to set this to a system property. If you remember, these system resources were accessed in a specific way in XAML. For C#, there's a new format that we have to use. We're going to access a solid color brush type, and we're going to set this to the application current resources, and we're going to access the resource phone border brush. So again, we have the amount border brush, and we're accessing a system resource called phone border brush, which is the default border brush color that's part of the system resources. Now we're able to assign that to the border brush by using the solid color brush type. So now we're able to access the error if it happens. So let's go ahead and run this again and try to repeat the same errors we had before. So now if I try to execute 15% without entering an amount, you'll see that now the application does not crash, but it does display the red border brush around our text block. If I go in here and enter in a correct amount, and then press 15 again, the border brush goes away back to the default color. The other error that we had was by entering in 2 decimal points. If I execute this again, you'll see that the red border brush now appears. So as you can see, both of our previous issues have been detected by the error handling, and we're now getting feedback to our user to adjust their entry to fix the error and get the desired result in the application. With that, we are now finished the core coding of our application. In the next chapter, we'll dive a little deeper into working with the simulator and how you can test your application on a physical device that is connected to your computer and test in a real-world environment.